Check, check, check.
Because of the camera. Okay, sure.
Check, check.
If it's Monday, you know it's the social newsroom. My name is Danny Shodongo, standing in for Mark Masai, and it's a fantastic audience and a fantastic panel. The conversation today is surrounded around the anatomy of a broken system. And of course, we are in a very interesting time. But before we start, I'd like us to have just a few seconds of silence to the two comrades who were brutally killed by the police. Their names are Rex and Evans Kiratu. And as we begin this conversation today, we are in a very interesting times that the people we called children raised by Cyrillac, and they are going to protest while eating KFC buckets and using Uber and iPhones. They have made the political class to descend from their ivory tower and from their high horses. And the tune has changed from how vijana wana Photoshop videos and photos to apologies now streaming in to how ni watoto wetu, from conversations that were last week coming from a place of arrogance to the political class willing to speak and negotiate with a group of young people who are determined to change the destiny of their country. This reminds me of the many moments we've had as a nation. 1963, the 2002 yote yawezekana bila Moi and bila Kanu. And I think like we are on the verge of something amazing. And today we have an amazing panel that will help us to make sense of this. But how we'll start this conversation is just going back to the Constitution. We know very well that the sovereign power belongs to the people, and they can either access this power directly or through their democratically elected representatives. But what happens when these elected representatives do not listen to the people? What happens when public participation becomes just something for ticking off a box? What happens when we say no to a finance bill and then our elected representatives are the ones who eventually go to parliament to pass this thing despite the many voices saying no. To help me make sense of this amazing conversation, which I think is extremely inspiring for me, I'll start on my left. Perhaps just introduce yourself and tell us which organization you represent and why this conversation makes sense to you.
Okay, so my name is Lorna Joyce. I am a co-founder and CEO of Binti Mothers Limited, which is a company that was formed in 2021 with the aim of providing menstrual health awareness and education, and at the same time, menstrual products. We are the proud trademark owner of Binti Pads, which has been in the market for 2 years. And yeah, I'm proud to be here, and I'm proud to, just speak on this topic and explain to people what is about to happen if this bill passes.
Let's a round of applause briefly just to welcome her. A gentleman with an interesting name. He tells me that's his ID name. If you can send him a M-Pesa to confirm whether his name is really Fanyamambo. Introduce yourself.
Thank you, and a very good evening to everyone. Yes, my name is Fanyamambo Kinuthia, and I'm a lawyer by training. And of course, we shall be getting into the conversation, but all I can say is when I began this fight in September of last year, when we were saying that we cannot talk about the cost of living without discussing the taxation, and we were saying that the government can go ahead and take, they can go ahead and take the salaries, we shall take the taxes. And people thought it was a joke. And even when we went to NADCO at Bomas, people were discussing counties. I was discussing taxation. And when when they brought the finance bill, and I partnered with Gathoni Wamoshomba and a few other people, and we said, we are going to tell Kenyans what finance bill is. And by the time it was hitting 1.5 months into conversations about the finance bill, I saw people taking up TikTok and so on and so forth and doing it. Today I can sit and relax and say we created disciples who are fighting it better than ourselves. And we thank everybody who has taken up this fight.
Makofi kwake. I'm glad that he's expanded this conversation because I'm also a bit uncomfortable that we are centering just one generation. And it's interesting, fascinating, but I think movements are never built with specific groups of people. It's usually an amalgamation of many other people. And then, gentleman, Mr. Kiplimo, just introduce yourself and which organization you represent.
Thank you. My name is Kigen Kiplimo. I am an economist. I lead policy research and advocacy at the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, which is a business member organization that represents the private sector. First, I'm a Gen Z, at heart. Maybe also physically, who knows? The issue of the finance bill, just
all right.
As I skim through, the issue of the finance bill, for the private sector, it's a yearly pain point. And this year, it was probably, if not anything, in the last 10 years, probably the biggest of pain points.
Makofi kwake tafadhalini. And a gentleman who has the name of the reigning champion of the Kenya Premier League, Mr. Gore. Tell us your name and which organization you represent.
Hi, everyone. Everyone online as well. My name is Michael Gore. I'm a research associate with the Africa Center for People, Institutions, and Society. We are a think tank based here in Nairobi, doing work in public policy, looking at how policy impacts, or translate into development and governance. And so this conversation is interesting to me because when I joined the organization is when I deeply learned about, what public debt is about and its implication. And, over the past 5-6 years, the conversation has been like, people have been firing warning shots, but no one has been paying attention. But now, as some people have been saying, the chicken have come home to roost. So, yeah, this is the time we need to amplify this conversation and, create the urgency for some of these issues to be addressed. So, yeah.
Makofi tafadhalini. Last but not least, Lillian, just introduce yourself and tell us what you do. Yeah.
My name is Lillian Awor. I'm a generation millennium. So today I'm very much happy. I'm an activist by profession. I'm a feminist. Why am I all those? It started when it was 2016. when everything was not okay in Kenya. So today when I'm here, I just want to speak about the ongoing protest of Generation Z. I'm very much calm because the thing that we have been fighting for all along in this country, the generation which is following me, which is a Generation Z, has taken up the mantle. So it means I'm just relaxing, like tomorrow I'll go. My work is just to supply, to give guidance where it's possible, then Generation Z will do the hard work. So for me, it's a very good conversation. Yeah, because since 2016 until today, it means I've built a generation whereby at least they're out there. They just realize that the country they need to speak because of the country, not like before they were being told they are Weetabix, the way you have said. They are just on social media, the way other MPs who are claiming that these people are being forwarded by the other people to create mayhem in town. But I'm very happy today.
Makofi kwake tafadhalini. And of course, the anatomy of a broken system has been made possible by 3 organizations, TISA, Okochumi, and the East African Tax Justice Network. You can let us know your feedback on this conversation. And as we begin, I think I'll begin with you, Lillian. I like the fire in your belly, and I like what's on your hoodie, which is written?
It is written a pussy power.
All right. What does that mean?
So a pussy power is a radical way to reclaim our power because our constitution gives us the power back to wananchi. Because back then, when we were saying about women power, youth power, people were just saying like, tumezoea. But we just wanted a radical way of how we can start this conversation.
Okay.
You see, today you have read what is pussy power. Now we have started this conversation. So it means we cannot start conversation by not being radical.
All right.
So for me, pussy power means a lot to me. It means I've created so many conversations around power because I'm passionate about advocating for good governance. That's why today we are here, Generation Z is here. Even tomorrow we'll go out. If the government was so good, we could have not come from Tuesday we are out, Thursday we are out. Because the government, together with the patriarchal system, has really oppressed youth of this country.
All right. All right. Makofi kwake tafadhalini. Just one last time. Joyce, let's begin with you. As a business person, to what extent is Kenya working for you? Is it working at all?
Hey.
Glucose?
I'm about to say where?
Yeah.
So how I even found myself in this space was back in 2020 when I started, when I was farming. And I used to do a lot of cabbages. And during that time when it was COVID and nothing was moving, I got into a space where my produce was about to rot at the farm. And so we came up with Kenyans with a way of donating cabbages. And then I remember back then when I was screaming at the government to come in and even get those cabbages then from my farm to come and donate, up to now where I'm speaking at the government to stop taxing periods. So during those donations, when I used to go into the slums and the places that we used to go to, women, apart from just me giving them the cabbages, it was, do you have pads? Do you have anything extra that you can give us? And by the time I was leaving that space of donations of cabbages, I couldn't settle because now I had to get into a space where I felt I was compelled to come into. And this was the period poverty challenge. And when we were starting out this company back in 2021, first of all, there's no information around anything, how to start a sanitary pads company, what the taxes look like. I had to go back and become a KRA agent to figure out how those taxes go, all the way to how to import, how to even start a manufacturing plant. You need easily nothing less than $3 to $5 million. Not Kenya shillings, dollars. That translates into around 400 million probably Kenya shillings. I don't have that money. I grew up in the slums. I'm trying to make a living out of myself and support other women. So there's the government or this system in no way supports the youth who are trying to start up a business and in no way holds your hand to move into the next step. That's what I'll say.
Wow. So it's not working for you. Kenya is not working for you.
At all.
Okay, okay. Fanyamambo, you hinted at this when we started this conversation. But how do you define the moment that we find ourselves in as a country?
I think I'd start by saying we are in a very interesting moment because we've just discovered that there was no furniture at State House. I think Uhuru used to sit on a round stool, and then when Museveni visits, they would go to the neighbors there and borrow some chairs. I even remember sometime they borrowed some plates and spoons. there were no comfortable sofa sets. There was no television in State House. I think Uhuru had a very miserable stay at State House. So the country really found itself in a very urgent need to buy furniture. And they have bought furniture for $1 billion. I don't think we are angry enough as Kenyans because we don't understand what $1 billion is. And I want everybody who is at home and holding their calculator to take $1 billion. It's just 1 and then 9 zeros. Then after those 9 zeros, I want you to divide that by 50 years. If you divide by 50 years, you'll get 20 million per year. And then you take that and divide by 365 days. You will have 55,000 shillings every day. So you can wake up in the morning, pick 55,000, and go and roam with it. Ikibaki, you throw away, or you give to anybody who is needy. Because tomorrow you'll take another 55,000, and you will do that for 50 years of your life. Wow. That is the amount of money that has been allocated to buying furniture in State House because there was nothing in State House. I think they were sitting on plastic chairs, those who were there. Yeah. Now, it gets even more painful. So what else can you do with $1 billion? If you take $1 billion today and you divide, in Dagoretti, there's something called Tap to Eat, where children come and pay 20 shillings per meal. So if you take that $1 billion and divide by 20 shillings per meal, you will have, you'll be able to support 137,000 children for 1 year. Yes. On food for 1 year. Just take $1 billion, divide by 20 shillings, and then divide by 365 days. 137,000 children will eat for 1 year, but there's no money for school feeding program. The same $1 billion, I was looking at it, if you add only 200 million, these intern doctors who were making noise and they had a strike for a whole 60 days, they only needed 1.2 billion. So if you added 200 million, and by the way it's available because the first lady gets 700 million and the wife to the deputy president gets 700 million. In total, they get 1.4 billion, more than the interns were looking for, and they had gone on strike for 60 days. Finally, if you take 1 billion, and because we have a problem right now in schools, teachers are not enough, and you just decide to pay the teachers 35,000 shillings. If you take $1 billion, I told you is 1 plus 9 zeros, ukombele, then divide by 35. My good friends, you will find that you can employ 29,000 teachers. And if each teacher is touching 50 children, it means it would impact the life of 1.5 million children. That is the money that has been used to buy furniture at State House. If you're not angry enough, I don't see what should make us more angry than that.
Wow. Wow. I think that's sinking in. The numbers need to sink in because I think when we throw around words like $1 billion shillings, we don't really know. We don't really get to break it down, especially in a country where majority barely earn a living wage. Mr. Keegan, to you, to what extent is this country as currently constituted and being run working for the private sector? But also you mentioned something about every year the finance bill is a pain point for the private sector. How are you guys handling the pain? Is it you guys are taking lots of painkillers, or what are you guys doing to deal with this pain?
Let me start with probably how we arrived here and what we're seeing with Gen Zs. So, I mean, when Moi leaves the office, the capital markets sort of open up a lot. And you find that Kenya can access a lot of credit from the multilateral partners, all these guys you hear, IMF and all these players. Even other countries, bilateral lending happens a lot. And through, Kenya starts to, ramp up its credit. I think by the time Kibaki leaves, we are at maybe about 38% of debt to GDP ratio. And then now, 2 young tax coming in 2013, and it goes even higher.
Add with matching ties.
With matching ties and matching shirts. And Kenya takes on more debt. And the problem is, this debt, majority of it becomes mismanaged, embezzled, white elephant projects. And then you get to this period that we are in, and there's this thing called debt redemption. The debt has matured. Case in point, the most famous one is Eurobond, right? From 2014, and it matured in 2024. In fact, it's being paid this month in June. Now, the challenge is, now that the debts are maturing, and we have a lot of debt obligations, and I heard the PS Treasury say that for every 10 shillings that Kenya collects, about 6 or 7 shillings goes into debt repayment. Now, the government is telling Kenyans that we need to tighten your belts, we need to add more taxes to be able to meet these debt obligations. And you are telling Kenyans whom, for the period that the debt has been borrowed, their living standards has not changed much. You know, and you're having this Gen Z's clear high school and university, and they're coming in and they're like, wait. What is happening? Like, this is when life is becoming tough, you know, and they just can't comprehend and take that line of decision. So that is why we are here in as far as the macroeconomics is concerned. Now, every year there's a finance bill. For us as the private sector first, we don't think we need to have a finance bill every year, okay? If anything, it's an amendment bill, right? Yeah. And I will demonstrate to you why we shouldn't have a finance bill every year. So at the Chamber of Commerce, what we do is we travel across the world, finding business opportunities for our members, and we come across a good number of investors who we tell them, you know, this is the premier investment destination, you know, come and invest. You can partner with our members, do joint ventures and all sorts of partnerships. But then, times without number, they communicate to us that one of their biggest challenge is the unpredictability of our tax regime, okay? Where there's a finance bill every year, and this finance bill that one might come and it might, you know, significantly affect your business, or worse, run you out of business, okay? And I'll give you an example, for example, of manufacturers, okay? Particularly those in the alcohol and beverage industry. Now, if you look at the finance bill of 2023, it required them that if you've produced a product, as soon as that product leaves your stockroom, for example, if it's that Tusker there, because EABL is one of my members, and this is a problem that they were actually facing, still facing, is that as soon as that product has left the stockroom, within 24 hours, you need to pay excise tax for it. Now, here's the thing. If you're in business, you know that invoices are not honored after 24 hours. If anything, 90 days, 120, she'll tell you some even pay after, you know, after 150 days, 30 days. So what you do, what businesses have had to do is that they've had to go to a financial institution to borrow, then they pay. So you're actually going to take a debt for you to be tax compliant. Now, the bank is not going to give you money for free. So what do? In your balance sheet, there's that finance cost, right? Because you've borrowed. So you transfer that to the consumer. And what happens is that it makes your product more expensive, right? And compared to finished products that are imported, then local manufacturing becomes uncompetitive. And then coming this year, one of the proposals in the finance bill was that now, on top of that, so they pay excise. Excise is paid also on raw materials. So for example, that kind of beer, there is some concentrates there. There is some ethanol for some of the vodkas. So they were saying that the excise that you're paying on the raw materials, they are not allowing you to offset with that of the finished product. So what that means essentially is the one that you pay on raw materials, what you would do is you would just minus it from the one for the finished product when you're paying for the one for finished product, so that it's not double taxation. So you can imagine in just 2 years, that's what manufacturers have had to contend with. Okay. And next year, there might be another one, right? Another example, just finally, is the betting and gaming industry. This is one of the industries that has been, hit over the years. And if you look at the numbers, you can see even government revenue itself is taking a hit down and down and down and down. So this year, I know of 7 that have actually closed, okay? And obviously that means layoffs for businesses, and government also doesn't collect any taxes on that. So the proposal was to increase the excise tax that's charged on the deposits and the winnings from 15% to 20%. So what has gone to Parliament now, that has been reduced. But when I talk to my members in betting and gaming, they're not satisfied because they don't know next year what's going to happen. These guys might raise it to 50. So what we need is we need predictability in our tax regime, because That's what investors want to see. That's what gives them confidence to come and put in money into the market. And it's not just international investors and FDIs, even local investors here. People don't want to put in money because they just don't know.
All right. Makofi, I think that's a fantastic submission. I'm going to come back to you because when Kibaki left the office, manufacturing made up 12% of our GDP. Today, it's at 7% of the GDP. I need you to help us paint a picture of what that means to employment, opportunities for young people, and just revenue. And is this really a tax issue? We're going to come back to you. But come back to you, Gore. What really is the most exciting thing that you feel as somebody who works at ASEPIS? And for this moment, what are you mostly proud about, especially in this moment? And just if we flip that coin a bit, what also are you a bit scared about, if you're scared about anything about this moment?
I think I'll start with what I'm most, let me not say scared, but disappointed about. We personally growing up, I benefited from free primary education. And most of us here, I believe, also did. From primary school, campus, some of us have had the privilege of even going through, higher education, having that qualification. So it means like in our population, we have top experts, top researchers, people who can think through different policies, and even beyond the confines of what we know within the country, even outside there, the top brains that, our leaders can leverage to, explore the, positives and negatives of whatever proposals they come with. But what we have seen time and time again is that politicians or our leaders, especially the parliament, they abscond their duty and, bow to the altar of, I would say, I usually call it political expediency. And what this implies is they always focus on their survival and, what they would, do to guarantee that they get into the next term, rather than focusing on what mandate they have there. And one of the most puzzling things for me is usually like what kind of confidence do they have, can they generate within themselves to challenge each other, to challenge the thoughts from their leaders, from their peers, because if it's by that discourse, by that challenging of different options and looking at these different perspectives that you get to iron these ideas and progress forward. You have the different leaders traveling all over. You cannot travel to the UK, US, see systems work, and then come back to Kenya. Whenever you land at JK, it's usually such a disappointment. You can feel you feel depressed. I don't know if everyone else usually feels the same. It's such a depressing feeling, knowing that you've come from a place where, let's say, proper roads to the airport, security, and all those things. And then you come here, immediately you leave the air, not even leaving. When you land, you're getting rained on, chaos right outside after and not even that, even when you're using matatus. I use matatus almost on a weekly basis when I'm going. So much chaos. And these are things that can be fixed. But time and time again, we just see our politicians not leveraging the brains that we have, not leveraging the resources and that we have, the internet that we have, even if they don't have money to pay these researchers. They can go on the internet and Google some of these things. People have developed resources outside there, and and also the constitution is also there, like telling you basic things, like like for instance, right now one of the things we are grappling with is people being abducted. The demonstrators being, violated by police. When in real sense, our constitution provides that, there's, freedom of picketing and demonstration. So when we are unable to confront truths, when we are unable to be truthful as leadership, then we see the kind of, the social contract breaking. And so on the other thing that you asked, the positive thing, one of the things I love the most is the awareness that is now coming up. and it's a good thing because, like, for me, as I indicated, I learned about some of these things, tax policy, public debt, like 5 years ago, and that's after I'd finished campus. Many people have not had that opportunity because, like, we are constantly in a cycle of worry. We cannot even dream of happy things. We cannot dream of being happy. We only dream of surviving. We just want to survive. How much of our taxes? Like, you, when was the last time you played? You know, when was the last time you played as an adult? Because people don't. You have constantly in this cycle of, if I don't work today, I'll not survive tomorrow. I need to work today so that I can just fulfill my, needs for today. And then tomorrow I'll again wake up to the same cycle. And so when you are in such a cycle, you are not able to, explore your full potential. So one of the things I love the most is that now young people are taking up, demanding what is theirs, demanding that, government, we give you these resources. We want it to work for us. There's no way you're going to give the spouse of the deputy president or the prime cabinet secretary these millions, when just 1 billion can translate to the kind of impact that has been illustrated here. So at least that awareness is it will be a catalyst for change. So we are hoping that we are going to build on this, and that even more people are going to be aware of what their rights are, and also potentially what the resources can do, such that the next time they go for public participation, they're going there with substance, they're going there with content, and they're able to demand more from their leaders.
All right. Yeah. To you, Lillian, I think as an activist, for me, by there, I'm really quite excited. I feel like this is just new fire in my belly. As an activist, and you call yourself that, how does this moment make you feel? But how's this country treating you? How do you feel this country?
So I'm very much happy for this generation that is one, because now I can rest, because there is a new fire in the house. The generation. You're not going to support them? I will support them, but I won't be as much active as them. They're very much empowered. That is number one. Through the social media, like the TikTok, I always learn about where they are through their TikTok pages. The safe places, they always communicate at their TikTok pages, whereby when I see police people harassing me, I go to Java, because they have said Java is the safer place. so for me, I'm very much happy, because when I was an activist like 6 years ago, we never had that threshold. Like, this is how we were just going to the streets demonstrating, but the power of social media was not as much as it is now, because Generation Z, they know how much to use the TikTok platform. They have huge following. They have so much information. But for us, when we were demonstrating, we had little information about what we are advocating for. I'm very much happy because they're out there not because politicians have pushed them to go out. I'm so very much happy because it is their will. The problem that the Generation Z and my generation, Millennium, because this is a generational problem, carrying from one generation to another generation. So I'm very much happy today if I can see young people going out there to demonstrate, not because that Raila have said, not because that a political party has pushed them to go, but because they have felt the fire. They have felt enough is enough for this country. They just want to go out. They just want to tell the whole world what is happening in Kenya. So for me, this is a good thing, because I've seen hope. For me, I was losing hope a bit, but for now, I can go out there, looking at them, smiling. They don't even see the danger when it's come to picketing. They're just throwing themselves in the street. They don't have boundaries on how they can do this demonstration. They give me the goosebumps to continue going out there strongly. Because for us, we were risking our lives when we were maybe 10 or 20, but for them, they are 1,000 people in the street. You know, even if it is Lillian alone, I can be targeted. I can be shot down. My family can be frustrated. But this Generation Z, no one can target them because you don't know their leader. They don't have a leader. It is their zeal pushing them out. Let's go, let's go. This country needs to go back to where it was. So for me, I'm very much happy. Like Generation Z, you have instilled another fire in me. So it means that when tomorrow I'll go out, despite the tear gas giving me home, but tomorrow I'll be there, because we need to continue the same solidarity. So so moving towards having good governance, let me hope this fire will go back to 2027. I'm an advocate for good governance, but when it's come to electing good leaders, electing our own, we don't elect our own. That is the thing that pains me the most. But let me hope we have started this revolution. Let me hope that the fire that it is within us, it's not going to burn down, but moving toward 2026, whereby this leader that they voted yes, when they come back to our hoods, because it is the same us that they are going to cheat us the way they've been there for us, and they have never been there for us. Like me, I come in Madare. I was waiting for my MP to say yes. He could have not stepped in Madare. For me, I was waiting for him, and I texted him personally. You shout there. I want you to shout. If you could see, my area MP always shouted, because I told him, if you are not going to shout, my friend, you are not going to step even in Madar. Even if you're going to church, we'll ambush there. Even if you're going to initiate any project, we are going to ambush there. We're not yes, you're not giving you. Yes, you're not giving you that leeway to continue lies, to continue lying to this generation that is very much powered. Okay. So for me, I'm very much happy. Let's continue with the same spirit. Viva to Generation Z, viva.
Viva. Absolutely. Mr. Fanyamambo, I don't know whether the framers of the Constitution saw a scenario where the doctrine of the separation of powers breaks down, because as it looks right now, it sort of feels like only one arm of government is working and is dominating over everyone else, the executive. So it's completely disempowered parliament, and they're singing their tunes. They've been turned into a lapdog. And of course, the judiciary is quiet. Now abductions are happening. We're not even seeing any statement. Are you worried as a lawyer? Are you worried about this? And was it something that, is there a way that can be remedied?
To start with, you know, when you go to campus and they're teaching you law, they teach you very many things about what should happen and what is ideal. And Kenya is not the kind of country that you're going to cure bad manners with the law. I'll tell you, we are drowning in laws. Our constitution is very big, and I want people to challenge themselves and look at the American Constitution. My friend, if you have bad manners, you have bad manners. No matter how many laws you make, if you have horrible manners, you are a horrible mannered individual. And we need to start speaking to the very software of Kenyans. Like, what is corruption? Why do you have Corruption Act? Why do you have the Kenya Anti-Corruption Act? And then you have the anti-corruption body. Corruption is theft. The penal code is enough. But because you feel some Kenyans are more special and you want to put them up there, they've stolen billions, you create another court to deal with theft of public resources. The penal code is enough. But we have to keep making laws, these laws, cover this law and cover this law. I have gotten to a point as a lawyer, I've discovered the law is not going to heal this country. What is going to heal this country is to have people in whom software, there is a culture of saying, I want to do the right thing. Because like now, look at the traffic law. How many times do people come and skip lights? Don't we have enough laws guiding us how to behave around traffic lights? So how many more laws are you going to make?
I think even just before you philosophize, and I think I like that because that's the ideal, but this question around the doctrine of separation of powers, do you feel like it's really working? Because that's a fundamental way
the reason it's
of
not
checks
working,
and balances. Yeah.
The reason it's not working is because of bad manners. You have a member of parliament whose sole work is supposed to be representation and oversight. But they want executive roles. They want to be given money in the name of CDF to come and build schools. That's an executive role. So it's, again, the issue of greed and bad manners, because they eat that CDF, That's how they eat it. And you look at a classroom that was built at 1 million shillings and you wonder what is going on. So it goes back to the same. So members of parliament want executive responsibility. Then look at the executive. Half of this budget was made in State House, this finance bill that we are having a problem with. And it should have been made in parliament. And then I talked to parliament. What is wrong with your heads? You know, you parliamentarians, let me tell you, I think it hasn't sunk in your head what your role is. I once had some member of parliament here in Nairobi, I don't even want to mention him, he's already having so many problems, saying that if I don't work with the executive, I'm not going to get resources coming to my constituency. Shame on you, member of parliament. And the reason I'm telling you, facing you, is this. You are put there as a member of parliament to allocate and apportion resources. not to receive. In fact, nyinyi ndio mnaambia president, as parliament, we are allocating these resources to this and this. The minute you understand how much power you have as a member of parliament, the president will be coming to you and saying, simutengeneze budget, mutusaidie, because they are the ones who even allocate money to State House. So members of parliament, shame on any of you who thought that you need to associate with the president for you to become effective. Actually, the president needs to beg you and talk to you so that when you sit in parliament, you allocate resources where he wants resources allocated. So that is how we in the minds of the people. And allow me to say this, because it's important. For those people who are in millennial generation, this generation, I'm a millennial myself, and for those who are Gen Zs, there's a conversation you started, although the words were a little bit, I would say, abrasive, when they said mama mboga na mtu wa bodaboda asijaribu kukaribia polling station because they have messed this country. That's not how I would put it, but I would put it differently. Let us start making a serious campaign to appeal to people that there's no problem with an intellectual occupying a position of leadership. Your leader must be more intelligent than yourself. The minute you get yourself to a place where you're saying, tunataka mtu anajanga kunywa supu na sisi anafanya, so you're looking for somebody who is exactly like you, and then you're wondering why the country is not moving forward. I want us to start a campaign, all of us who are here, of going out there and saying, siku anasomesha mtoto wangu, ili aongozwe na yule hajasoma. There is no use. So we start a campaign of saying, not in a bad way, but Mama Mboga, tulisupport watu wenyu last time. We've seen what they've done. Now we want you to support a few intellectual people, a few brilliant people who've been to school, and see whether there's going to be a difference. And 2027, I am pleading with you, if you allow me. You know, an MCA, people think there's a provision in the law that an MCA needs to be a degree holder, which they rubbished. Because Nairobi now is dealing with about 49 billion or something of that kind. Now, for anybody who's never been to class 8, or for anybody who's been to Form 4, we never wrote a billion in our books, not unless you want to lie. The first time you see a billion is in campus. So you elect an MCA who had been to class 7, and he goes to the county assembly, and he sees 9 zeros following a number. Then he's wondering, why all this? So it's the first time he's seeing a billion, and he's supposed to discuss how to pay doctors in Nairobi and so on and so forth. So we have to make it a deliberate effort to start a campaign for people who are educated, a campaign for people who are intellectual, a campaign for people who have qualifications, and to start saying the rest of the society, let us support these ones. Let us correct them. And by the way, they have a culture of saying sorry very quickly. If you've noticed, I'm sorry, here I made a mistake. Yeah? So those are the kind of people we need to elect.
This is just my opinion. I sort of disagree with you because I think that can be quite classist, because I think this country has been mortgaged by the learned. Right now, we have one Harvard learned lawyer and one Harvard trained economist. Exactly, but they're the ones who auction this country. But we're going to come back to that because I think we've just been about barely independent 60 years, 50-something years. I think the country was still working then.
Can I say something? 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Please understand this. Urban planning, for example, is a degree that takes 5 years in the university. The MCA in charge of urban planning right now, hajaona Form 4. And that's why you see a trench leading into a manhole and then leading into a building. Because some of these things, let me tell you, it's like you go to the airport. Please forgive me, but I have to explain. And you find two guys. You're told this guy has been to aviation school for 10 years. He knows how to fly a plane. Then you're told this guy, alikuwa anaendesha Umoina, but ni msempoa, let him fly you to the US. There you say, no, I want a qualified pilot. You go to a hospital. There's a qualified surgeon and there's a guy who is not qualified. And you are asked, whom do you want to operate on your head? You say the guy who's been operating for 20 years. Everywhere you go, when you want to employ a house help, unasema nataka mwenye ako na Form 4 aweze kufanya homework na watoto wangu. But when you want a member of parliament, birth certificate is enough. This is what is killing this country. We have to get to a point where you say there are certain minimums that are absolute. If a house girl must have a Form 4 certificate, then I cannot have my MP having a birth certificate being enough. Kuna moja anaitwa engineer, anapeana 20 million kila mahali. That is not acceptable for the country.
All right. Mr. Gore, I'd like you to pass the microphone to to Laura just a bit. I need her to chime in on this issue because I think this is the problem we have in this country. We design good laws, but why is it so? All right. Yeah. So how is it that we struggle with this doctrine of separation of powers, and what can be done to remedy it so that then the way the framers of the Constitution envision a doctrine of the separation of powers working actually is what is happening?
As Fanyamambo here has mentioned, I think the concern is the type of leaders we elect. I think, to my mind, it's important to have people who are qualified in terms of their academic qualifications. And that being said, I think it's also important to have leaders who are good human beings, leaders who have values. That way, we have members or leaders that go into leadership and respect the laws we have in place. Because no matter how many laws we implement, no matter how many acts of parliament we enact, if we don't have the political goodwill to implement those laws, then it is in vain. So I think it's very important to have leaders who are qualified, leaders who have values, and that way we are going to have effective laws because those leaders understand and respect the reason why we have those laws in the first place.
All right. But just also to add into that, there are caucuses in parliament. Like, for example, there's this famous way of achieving the two-thirds gender rule of the 47 women rep. Why are caucuses not really working? For example, like in this current finance bill, there are so many clauses that are likely to affect women more than they are likely to affect other genders, you know. Do you think that perhaps we jumped the gun by thinking about gender equality from a numerical representation perspective than from a value system that we say that you might be a woman, but you don't represent our ideals? Because just that you're a woman doesn't make you the defender or an ally for women. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with you. The fact that we have women representatives that don't really know their function, then it shows we have a problem, you know, from the word go. So it is not sufficient for you, by virtue of being a woman, to be elected as a leader. I think we need to go beyond that and then look at the qualifications. And that way we can have, as we are discussing the Finance Act, for example, or the Finance Bill 2024, then we have leaders who understand the reason why they're there and, you know, the people they represent in the first place, whether you're a man or a woman. So I think it's important we go beyond, you know, the two-thirds qualification and look at, you know, the metric. Are you qualified in the first place? Being a woman is not sufficient. Yeah.
All right. Round of applause. I'd like a microphone to be passed to my friend here, Mr. Kamande. From a civic education perspective, there's just, do you feel like maybe the fundamental problem is that we have done a lot more, especially Uraia. You guys have given a lot of money for civic education, but less money for political education. And so we are seeing bad decisions in the ballot, while we are very aware of our rights sometimes as Kenyans.
Thank you very much, Danish. And I want to applaud everyone for the very, very useful insights that we are getting. I think personally, as a civic educator, because I call myself a civic educator, it's a very important moment in our country today, because as our history as Uraia, we started when there was a watershed moment way back in 2002, when Kenyans actually had an awakening, and we are seeing a similar thing. That notwithstanding, we have had a long history in trying to educate Kenyans and empower them about not only their rights, responsibility, but what my colleague just said about value-based leadership. And I want to agree with Laura, what she said earlier, that beyond the competence in terms of education, what we as Kenyans are lacking is values. Values is something that we've seen over the years have eroded, and it's what the Gen Z are redefining, because they're being united with values that are not usually the norm, and that's why we are seeing a lot of interest. So one of the many inspirations I've witnessed, I think, in the past week and in the past month is civic education in very many other forms. One of them, of course, being translation of the finance bill into the vernacular languages, which is a really important progress in our country. So I think over time, we might have invested heavily in terms of civic education, and we are living in a democratic space where a lot is fast moving and fast changing, and we need to just be able to recognize the moment that we're in today and be able to tap into those spaces. I see TikTok, for instance, I see online media spaces as very, very useful that are defining the landscape of civic education. And so moving forward, I think, and information is everything. Information is power, and it's what has led to this awakening. We need to tap and leverage on this kind of movement so that we're able to empower more people and even sustain the conversation, because Danish, I can tell you for sure, the problem starts at the ballot. The problem starts at the ballot. And when we're able to see Gen Z coming out strongly and speaking very, very boldly about political affairs, and you mentioned something about political education. Of course, we might want to transition to that, but I don't know how many of you know that the finance bill has actually been discussed for the past 11 years since devolution, but it's only this year that we are seeing a lot of interest. Oh, beginning last year, that is. Yeah. So what is lacking really? Is it political education of just civic education on matters, public finance management, political decisions that are being made every day? The budget cycle is a 9-month process. Every day is a budget day. I'd want to see more of course, civic education vis-a-vis political education. Of course, there's a very thin line between the two. But we need to see more people trying to sustain this conversation throughout the budget decisions. So very soon we are starting a new financial year. We're going to start another budget cycle. The Auditor General report is going to be coming out. We want to see Gen Zs, of course, engaging in all these processes, and it's a time we need to recognize that kind of moment within us.
Thank you so much. I'm tempted to, but I'll come back to you, but I'm tempted to ask whether this civic education and the awakening will actually result in a ballot revolution, because the previous election, President Ruto won with 7.17 million votes. Raila came in second at 6.942 million votes, but 7 million Kenyans did not vote. In fact, President Ruto was voted with one of the least number of voter turnout in the history of this country, I think at about 30-something%. But I just want to come back to my two panelists who have left in the call for a bit, but just still hold the mic. Joyce, so Binti pads, there's a conversation around the government. You know, there have been billboards in this city of a certain lovely senator who, okay, all right. You see, you already see the response of the audience here. Lovely, okay. So tell me more about what would a responsive tax regime look like for a startup business owner like you, one. Number two, what does it take a government to be insensitive that they would tax what already many women in this country cannot afford, and how is it looking like in the finance bill?
Statistics is 65% of women in Kenya cannot access, let alone even afford, cannot access. That means haifiki kwao. And that translates to 7 out of 10 women in Kenya who cannot get these pads. Rural areas mostly are the ones who are affected by this. And by the time the tax-free pads was being fought for back then to where we are now, it has not been an easy feat. If it wasn't for that fight of a tax-exempt, a zero-rated product, sanitary pad product, we would probably be buying pads at 200, 300 shillings. As of now, an average price is, say, 75, 80 shillings. With this new tax, with the eco-levy being added to imported pads, which make up 70% of what comes into this country, 30% being locally manufactured, that means there will be a shift in price, an increase, a steep increase, because locally manufactured products would essentially be, it's a rush to try and fill a gap that we are creating ourselves with this tax. That eco-levy amounts to 20% increase. I'll say 20 because maybe for my pads going at 80 shillings, that's like 96 shillings. But that's me, maybe to a shopkeeper. If you go to a supermarket, that changes to around 150. So whatever you've been buying goes way higher than what you are used to. A lady needs easily 2 packets and on average a month. Multiply that from what they used to buy at 80 to buying 2 packets at double the price. It's not going to make sense. Women in Kenya, 80% of consumer buying is done by that, that push or that is done by women. We are the ones who say when it comes to buying, we have the buying power. So when you already tax everything involved in it, plus the basic need that we require, what are you telling us? That we don't matter in this country, or, you know, nyinyi ni others. Kaini uko nyuma sisi tukiongea. To that senator who has purported to be a champion for period poverty in this country, doing the amazing things that she did in parliament, and now coming back and changing and saying, buy Kenya, build Kenya. She's not telling you one thing. Import charges are going up. That RDL, which is the Railway Development Levy, as well as import declaration, is also going up. That affects the local manufacturer who's here in Kenya. Easily buy, they import raw materials. We don't have cotton or pulp or sap to make this pads here in Kenya. They have to import this stuff with their machines to be able to run that. I went to get a quote from a local manufacturer last year, and with the quality that they were giving me, I could not compromise my quality for a local manufacturer. As of now, I don't even manufacture. And that is a painful moment for me to know that in so many ways I'm giving this job out there. I hope to get into that space 5 years from now. With the taxes that you're building now, I'll probably close down company next month. I don't know where we are. And that's the pain point of what we are feeling here in the sanitary pads space. And it's not just pads, it's tampons. Right now, tampons are tax-free, actually. That tampon that you buy at 230, thank you. That is going to go up double the price. It's not taxed right now. That is what we are telling people. It will be double that. So at 600 bob, that's the choice that is being slashed away from you.
Why don't you manufacture? Maybe if you may just let us understand, that could give us an insight into the manufacturing space in Kenya.
So when we started in 2021, I thought 5 million, which we saved up with a friend of mine, was enough to start manufacturing, until we started asking what's the requirement. So easily getting machines into this space to be able to manufacture to the magnitude of serving even just a county requires upwards of 50 million Kenya shillings. What would my 5 million do with a machine? Nothing. Setting up, cost of manufacturing here, starting with just the simple electricity, you cannot manage. Someone like Devki has his own power, but also has to substitute it with extra power, right? So how am I to beat that at this stage where I'm starting? It's hard. It's hard. Even that local manufacturer who was quoting prices for me, he said he can't go lower than a certain price based off the fact that cost of manufacturing for him is off the roof. So how are we building and buying Kenya? Because what that means is we compromise on quality to give women itches, burns, rashes. Ama nyi mnataka hizo. Maybe mnataka pads zinawachoma so that, you know, we continue with the journey. Because that is what we are trying to not get into. Yes.
All right. So just a couple more questions before I hand over to my co-host. But the president signed a very public women's charter just before the elections. And that mobilized women across board. Were you part of the charter, the signing? I'm just asking. And moving forward, how do we not allow politicians who don't understand some of these unique challenges, for example, even PWD challenges, or, you know, men making decisions for, you know, problems they don't face? How do we move forward to ensure that the way we organize women is not just to transfer them to a political formation for votes, and we actually mean that their issues reflect in the way we make decisions in the especially in this finance bill and how we do taxation and how we allocate finances and resources?
So an easy way of looking at this thing, we have 7 local manufacturers of sanitary pads, diapers, etc. We don't have any tampon manufacturer or panty liners. So all these things have to be imported. Out of the 7, none is a woman. Wow. Yeah. So the local manufacturers that we are pushing, all of them are men. That means it's the men making decisions for women's bodies. That's it.
That's it.
That explains everything. We will never get a chance to get onto that stage if we as the women don't even get an opportunity. Accessing funds for a woman like me to get into that space to manufacture, that's a dream. I had a period of 5 to 7 months where I was doing fundraising for this business, because in as much as I have brought something that's really good and quality for the women, I need money to sustain that in this market. Yeah. And during my journey, it has not been easy. I still haven't gotten funding up to now. I have relied on friends and family and, the other F, to try and just get to the point where I can be able to be sustainable. I can be able to sustain this business and to keep my employees. And so if I cannot even access funds to create a manufacturing plant here, what does that even tell us? We are never called when such things are open to us. I've never had any even public participation around. We're being gathered, we're being asked to go and do this. I see most of these things even from Twitter. The other day I was seeing public participation for this bill via Twitter. I didn't even know it was happening. That's how tunaficha vitu. We also can't do this without the men. I acknowledge that. And I like the fact that in my company, if you're a man, you have to know the full description of what pads look like, what pads mean, what a good quality product looks like, so that when you go out there, you also educate more on what these things are. We are in 2024. We are not in 1970 where it's a taboo or something that should be shunned. Because in that way, then we can move on into creating better policies and creating even better spaces for us to speak more.
All right.
Yeah.
Again, I'm gonna come to you in a few, but I just need to think about, you guys pushed a bit of almost 70% of your proposals reflected in the finance bill, if I'm correct. But also I need you to help us understand a bit more excess detail. But before that, I need Lodge. Where's Lodge? All right, hi Lodge. So Lodge, there's this issue of the political class always using the special interest groups as a bargaining power. So either the, so my question to you is this: how then do we stop that so that women are not banded over into lorries and given some nice dresses and then eventually handed over to a political class who have absolutely no interest in meeting their needs?
When you mentioned the charter that people signed, I know a lot of people were on the fence before the charter was signed. Then one camp announced they have a female running mate and a few people moved. Then the other camp decided, let's do a charter. And now I know a good number in my social circle decamped and moved to the other side. And you realize that women are a very critical voter demographic, because it has always been said, ukiwa kwa ground, kama hauna vote ya wamama, hautapata hiyo kiti, si ndio? We are a very critical voter demographic that everyone likes to use and dispose after they get what they want. So the question in how we organize women to make sure that they're not being manipulated, initially we thought that representation in terms of numbers would get us there. But as we are seeing with our billboard senators and all the others, numbers and representation is not really getting us there, because we now have flower girls who are championing a different agenda. And then they come and scold us. They come back to scold us for putting them there. So while we are pushing for numbers, I am not saying that we should remove representation. Representation is important, but we'd want to check how we are going about that representation is equal for the sake of the way we are largely doing gender conversations. We have a men on a panel, and we're like, where are the women? Then we pick whoever is in the vicinity. We pick them and throw them there. We really need to redefine representation. Is this person qualified? If they are not, and they're the only person there, what capacity do they need? What can we give them such that they deliver? The question of value-based leadership has come up. And often when we are going about women representation, we forget about values. We just look at gender. She's a woman, good. She's good to go. We forget about values. So in terms of organizing our women, as we endeavor to educate, to carry out civic awareness and political education, let us also have those matrices. The same metric we use to evaluate men or other genders should be also applied across, such that we are pushing on representation fronts, we are pushing on capacity building fronts, and largely we need leadership development programs for women.
That's a fantastic submission. Makofi kwake tafadhalini. And back to you, Keegan. I think, just like I asked you, I'd like to understand a bit more what's happening. Just give us a bit more background. Sorry.
I think the last time I checked, the percentage of Kenyans who have a bachelor's degree is less than 5%. So maybe it is a tool of exclusion than inclusion. I mean, but that's just food for thought. Coming back to the question of manufacturing in our submissions, three things. One, the comments that we submitted to the committee. So we appeared before the Committee of Finance and National Planning, and we told them about the issues that business people have. Now, they accepted some issues. They did not agree with some issues, and some issues were left in gray areas. And I will just demonstrate why and how they are potentially bad for our economy. Now, on those that they accepted, and even while having some behind-the-scenes conversations with some of these members of parliament who sit in that committee, they would tell me frankly that Treasury submitted to them a document that was just too hard even for them. Because if you look at some of the clauses that are there, it's just insane. I mean, even things like 25%, tax on edible oil, and these are products that people use on a day-to-day basis, just wouldn't make sense even to the parliament. Now, on the issues that were declined, for us was the digital service tax. I don't know, contribution, something like that, except it 6.5. Talk about 20%, but 30% of what, but the effective rate was 1.5 to 6%. So for us, we're telling them no, and for a number of reasons. The digital service tax came in 2021, okay? Back to the question on the predictability of our tax regime. If you look at, in the game of investing, this is what? This is probably 40 months, give or take. This is still short term, maybe close to medium term in terms of investing. I haven't even returned my capital. And you're not only changing the name of the tax, but you're hiking it by 300%. So as an investor, what kind of signal are you sending me? That tomorrow you can just wake up and there's a new tax that takes me out of business? On the gray areas, one of our biggest concern, and I mean this has always been a concern for me at a personal level, is that sometimes the government probably is not in touch with what is on the ground. So there was the proposal that non-compliance with e-teams, you're going to be, to get a penalty of up to 2 million a month. And we told them this is insane, because at the Chamber of Commerce, we have a quarterly research. And it's a survey that goes out to business people, members and non-members of the chamber, formally registered, in all sectors, non-formally. And in this past quarter, the second quarter, half of the respondents that participated in the survey had an annual revenue of less than 1 million in a year. And so our economy is really, really micro. I mean, we're seated in Riverside with very big businesses, but Nairobi is a bubble. Our economy is really, really small. So when you tell businesses that you're going to charge them 2 million penalty per month, and they don't even make half of that in a year, then you might as well take away their business. So we told the committee that this doesn't make sense. Now, the committee agreed with us that, yes, this penalty is punitive, but then they did not stipulate the penalty. Now they left it. Now that's a gray area. Because, I mean, the commissioner of KRA might as well go back and charge the 2 million. I mean, it's been left openly. So that's one of our biggest concerns. The other concern is motor vehicle tax. So the committee came back and said, yes, we've taken out the motor vehicle tax. And we're like, yeah, cheers. But then there's another proposal to increase the road maintenance levy to push RML from 18 shillings to 25. That's 7 shillings. And we're like, wait. See, we had an agreement. Because if you look at the taxes that are charged on fuel at the moment, it's about 76% of the landed cost, 76%. So if you increase 7 more shillings, what's going to happen? Then we tell them, okay, now, don't listen to our rhetoric, watch the data. What do the numbers say, okay? So if you look at the fuel that is imported into Kenya, the crude oil, in 2021, it was about, I think, around 6.5%, 6.5 million liters. And then you go to 2022, and it goes down to 5.7. And then in 2023, it goes down to 4.3. And the number of vehicles on our roads are increasing every day, right? There's more vehicles than last year. But then the consumption of fuel is going down. So that tells you that the product is becoming unaffordable to Kenyans. Because at the back end, you see there was 8% VAT during Uhuru on fuel, 16% VAT came in. So we're telling them, listen, don't listen to us. Watch the data. So if you increase the RML, what's going to happen? Fuel is going to become even more unaffordable, and there's going to be less consumption. And when there's less consumption, then you guys collect less revenue, right? So that is our biggest concern with this particular bill, at least those parts that have been changed. But just going back a little bit into manufacturing, I know you had posed this question to me. Manufacturing, it's a few issues. One is the cost of power. Up north to Ethiopia, even with how the economy has been running with the macroeconomics and currencies, even if you go to Museveni's, which who's in the plastic business, and they moved their operations outside the country, and now they're just using their lines of distribution to just distribute. So they bring in products under the East African Common Market Tariff. I mean, it's free, right? And then they just sell in Kenya, producing here. And guess which country they went to? They went, and even we were like, what? You know, I mean, because it's cheaper, right? And it follows the rule. Second is when you go to a business that does manufacturing, and you, as soon as you enter in and you see their notice board, they probably need a second wall, just because of the number of licenses that have been pasted there, right? Now, today, let's say you are manufacturing in one county, and you have trading points in all the other 46 counties. Exactly. So if you are producing in Nairobi, and your truck is going to where? Kisumu, so you pay, and you're dropping in every point. So here in Kiambu, your truck, because it's branded, you're going to pay the advertising fee. You're going to pay the offloading fee. Then you have the business operating license. I mean, so you have a shop there. Then you have what? You have sales. Then if you go down to Nakuru County, you pay the same. Nakuru, you go where? up all those counties until Kisumu. And these counties have different rates for all. So the distribution, the offloading fee for Kisii County is very different from Uasin Gishu or wherever. So everyone has their own different rates. So you are dealing with about 188 permits and licenses in a small market as Kenya, which has a market of what, 55 million people? But then not really 55 million people because it depends on which kind of product you're selling. If you're selling a luxury product, then you probably have a market of 1 million people or less. So if I'm an investor, I'm sitting in Beijing or London or Brussels or wherever, and I'm looking at 188 licenses at just the county level, I haven't even touched these guys at the national level, then it becomes even harder for me to make the investment. So those are some of the issues that are affecting manufacturing.
All right. Just a rejoinder before my co-host comes in. A quick one. Is the government then living in the clouds? Because all these macro statistics and data, they have them. It's not like, you know, President Ruto lives in Mars, then wears a mask to come back home to check on Kenya. He lives with us here. So then what? Oh, okay. Akuagi huku. Anarudi kuchange nguo. Wow, okay.
He lives up there.
I wanted to trigger that. I'm happy you feel the same. But why do they constantly make tax proposals that are out of touch with reality? That's number one. But number two, you've raised a very important point, 188 permits. But we have regional economic blocks, like we have LREB and we have all these things. Why is it so difficult for them to harmonize? Because Kenya ni moja. Even if we have 47 governments and one national government, Kenya is one. Briefly too, yeah.
When county governments charge these levies, they make money from it, right? And it is not new knowledge to us that some of the serious embezzlement that happens at the county level, okay? Now, the governors are not incentivized to create an enabling environment for business people. They don't see the bigger picture. Everyone is about, are we collecting more levies as a county, you know, and then probably go buy a house in Dubai. Back to the first question. I have sat down with a good number of people in government, and more often than not, they're actually way smarter than me, way informed than me. It is a question of intentionality, no doubt. And back to the point of education, intentional. Some of the made this decision. Free education, primary education. Not sure if it's still free. So that intentionality is what needed. I mean, and just to close off, the point declaration. Now, if the bill passes, and hopefully it doesn't, from 2.5% to 3%. And we're telling them, listen, what if we could just have the IDF for raw materials lower? You can even raise for the finished product, because anyone who's importing raw materials, they have an intention of value addition to promote local manufacturing and local production.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, sir.
They are doing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. and just to, on that point of sanitary towels, because it's menstrual products.
Thank you.
Okay. Menstrual, thank you. Menstrual products, that's the right language. When it comes to factors that determine people buying or consuming a product, for this particular band of products, consumer preference comes top, because for someone this might be their preferred brand and they feel most comfortable with, and it could be a different case for the other. So even taxing the ones that are being imported, and as you rightly put, 70%, just doesn't make sense because of the customer preference. And I personally don't believe that by taxing imported products, you are giving a really significant edge to local production. If anything, just incentivize local production. And I've looked at some of the data and reports, and those products that are used in poor rural neighborhoods and poor urban neighborhoods actually tend to be the locally produced. So if anything, if you give incentives and if you subsidize the cost of production for locally manufactured products, then you're actually giving them the real edge as opposed to putting more taxes on the imported ones.
And of course, this is the Social Newsroom. My name is Kate Sheja. A big thank you to Danish, of course, for taking us through. I was watching online and I'm super, super glad to be joining in. The hashtag is Welcome to the Future. And of course, if you're welcoming the future, you have to be with the future. And everyone who is seated with me here is in the future and is going to be part of the future. Those who are watching us at home, remember, it is the Social Newsroom. Let's just start off, of course, with saying, Paul Sana, and of course, my heart goes out to some of the people who have lost their lives in the recent protest against the financial bill 2024. And even an alarming news is, of course, a hashtag that is currently trending, Free Franje and Free Shadi, two people who are still being abducted and have not been given reports of where they are. This is, of course, following the fact that there has not been an official word from IPOA, the police, the judiciary, or the Ministry of Interior, something that is very, very concerning to all of us. And of course, we understand that we live in a country where it's run on a platform of reform and reorganization for Kenyan's political structure. So, of course, the police will not be involved in politics. That's one of the agendas that the previous government have been doing. That is why we had to designate the office of the IG to be fully independent and, of course, be an independent institution that handles its own budget. But, of course, there's something that we have noticed. And one of it is that during the Maraga Commission, we also conducted some work and we see ways of improving and working terms and conditions of these offices. But even with this independence of the IG's office, I know we are seeing that they are, I don't know if the right word is rogue, but taking matters into their own terms. Are they following the rule of law? And what does this mean for Kenyans who are going to be joining the streets? And of course, I have to ask our official activist for today, Liliana Aror, please tell me what you feel about the abductions and the fact that maybe the rule of law is not really working for the country as we speak.
So it is not working. So from what I've heard, yeah, they have said tomorrow they will give us protection, but we just want to look at holistic. What type of protection is this one? Is it the same that they are coming as snitches into the mandamanos, then they are marking this and this and this, then after the protest, when you're going back home, our people are being abducted. So we need to be very careful when you're going out there. We should not be happy because they have said they will give us protection. Let this protection be quote unquote, because we don't trust the government, but because we're up against this government. So for tomorrow, we need to be very vigilant and work with a person that you know that this is someone and someone. We should not walk alone, because it's the same government does not want the other people to hear that the country, it is in a mess. So the reality is we are in a mess. Even the police officers, we move from a force to a service, but we've forgotten to change their attitude, their characters, because changing a word with another word does not mean that they have changed their attitude. It is the same police. We saw it went viral, the OCS for Kamkunji, how they mishandled that lady. Then akasikika akisema mwache akufe. You saw it, mwache akufe. This is an OCS. He was an OCS back at our place. We demonstrated, then he was transferred to Kamkunji. So he has been a rogue OCS all along. So when you speak about a rogue OCS, the government removed from one police station, then taking the same problem to other constituency. So we have seen how police, they have mishandled our women. Even we saw how Hanifa was mishandled. Yeah, she's a woman, but we have police women. Why can't a woman handle another woman? So this is the same police that they have never been favor for any protester in this country. We have never seen them giving us protection. We have never seen them coming to protect us all the time. So for me, this is a rogue police. This is a rogue force. It is not the same service that they say we are reforming from a force to a service, because it is they just switched the words. But it is the same police. Like for me, I always question the issue when IPOA is not speaking about the forceful disappearance of the Protestant. It's question about the issue of independence of the police, because they need to speak about the people that they have disappeared. These are people who have disappeared forcefully. They're not taken because they're being willing to. So it is a forceful disappearance. If the IPOA is not speaking about it, it means there's a problem. IPOA, it is an oversight whereby when a police officer, they're misbehaving, they need to speak about it. So me, I'm looking for, we have another one for IMLU. So many Protestants were shot, yeah? So it has been verified that the bullets are coming from police officers' guns. But no one is speaking about the issue. We have lost 2 of our comrades. Yeah, it really pains me when a 21-year-old is gunned down. But does anyone has come out to condemn the killings? It's only us for us. That's why I'm saying tomorrow, let us be vigilant, let us protect one another, let us hold hands one another. We should not leave anyone behind, because the government is out there to destroy us, because this generation does not want to continue with the shenanigans that they've been doing to the old generation. So for me, I'm not happy about the police, and I'm not going to be happy because they have removed a statement that they'll be there for us. They have never been there for us. So Generation Z, tomorrow don't say, a police officer, I'm taking Instagram, we are with the police officers live. No, that's a snitch. So we need to be very careful, because after demonstration, we'll find so many people have disappeared. That's the reality, because they will see Lillian is singing so loudly. Yeah, they will mark me. They will see another person there. You're singing very loudly. It means you're the one that has been organizing this one. You know, they're targeting Boniface Mwangi, that is in charge of the demo. It is not Boniface Mwangi. It is our pain, which is pushing us to go out. So they are looking for the people that are organizing this mandamano. They don't have a clue, because the Generation Z has not given the information out. It means they're very good in terms of the platform that they're communicating, which is a kudos to them, because the government has tried to infringe on their communication module, but they have not found where these people are communicating. Why are they so much in town within a particular 1 hour? There are so many. So the government is out there looking for some people to be finywa, yeah? Mnafinywa mnyamaze. Because you cannot kill everyone. Generation Z, there are so many out there. So they're just looking for who to target, because they know 1 or 2 people, they're in charge of this. So tomorrow for me, I don't want to be a friend of a police officer. I've never been a friend of police officer, because I've been in the opposition since 2016 with this government. So tomorrow, I'm still in the opposition, because I know walinifinya wananipiganga all the time, yeah? So I'm markable, but tomorrow I'll be there. So I'll be telling my comrades, manze, kaini mbali na polisi, wachaneni na watu, wametumwa, because if they are good enough, kuna wale mapolisi marafiki zangu wameniambia, Lilian, mshahara yetu tunaishi kwa punda huko, zile manyumba za punda, but we cannot speak because the government ukiongea, unapata sack letter, kesho you go home. We have seen other officers wamesha survewa. Kwa wale wenye walikuwa nasaidia kusambaza maji, wale wenye walikuwa nasaidia Generation Z kuambia ingieni hapa, they are coming. There are these police officers who have been helping us so much kwa maandamano in the street. But right now, wameshtuliwa, wameambiwa manze, mnaenda, mwache kucheza na hii serikali. So it means tumerudi kwa ile serikali ya you don't need to speak. We even saw media people being beaten, you saw. Wanapigwa, wanaambiwa msikave this thing. So it means even katiba yetu ilitupatia freedom ya media houses. If a media person anapigwa, what about a civilian out there mwenye anatetea haki yake? So for us, let's continue with the same fire, but tomorrow no one should danganya you tuingie kwa ikona. Usidanganywe kesho. So kesho tembeni in groups, tembeni in large numbers, because we know our causes, we are fighting this government. As she has said, I'm coming from underprivileged society, Madare. So I'm coming from an organization where we fundraise for even our children in formal school to get sanitary towels. You see, if we are fundraising for sanitary towels and we get a lot of funding from other people from outside this country, when the heavy taxation is upon them, number one, they would donate. Number two, they will run away from us. Number three, our children in school, they will suffer. Because sanitary towels, it is not a want, it is a need. Because each and every month, it is not our problem. We are born that way, yeah? Yes. Every month we need to shed, yeah? So we thank God for these things, that it is unique in each and every woman. We don't need to ask. We need to demand, because it is a right.
Yes.
So for me, people are celebrating about wamekata mkate, ushuru ya mkate. We can do without the bread. The issue we are speaking about is heavy taxation on our people. Like young generation, the content creators. Heavy taxation inaanza kufanywa kwa nyinyi. Nani anaingianga atao kupiga content creation? The young generation. So inamaanisha, even the small opportunity that the young people are trying to create, which the government has failed to create, the government is still coming back to ask for their lion's share. Yes. You see, it is a government eating its own people. So for us, we need to sit down, the same information that it is here, because my community does not know about the finance bill, yeah? Yes. It has not been broken down. So we need to go out there to populate the same information that it is here. We need everyone to be angry. The more we are angry, the more we come out in large numbers, the more the government will listen to us. But if you're speaking here and you're not telling people about the heavy taxation on young generation, even for us, for me, I'm being paid by an organization. I earn more than 50,000 in a month. But tax, unapata umekatwa 4,000, 5,000, inaenda wapi? That is my earned money. I worked like 9 to 8 hours in a day. You see, like, the government has not provided that work for me. I went out, I searched for this job, yes. But again, it is coming for the lion's share. So the issue even for the KRA, yes. KRA is being given mandates to tap to other systems. Yeah? It's being given mandate to emerge to other systems. Yes. So it means even for data protection, it is a problem. There is no privacy there. So when KRA is being given this opportunity to tap onto other systems, it means we have a problem.
Well, let's stay on course, of course, as we're still focusing on rule of law, because it's clearly a concern, and there's something you've notified, of course, the abduction, police, the name Utumishi kwa wote is clearly not what we're seeing. And for those who are at home, you do understand that some of the protesters or people who have been leading in this protest, not leading really, but at the forefront, the likes of Boniface Mwangi and Hanifa had taken themselves to the DCI offices, yes. Right here on Kiambu Road, something that we're seeing to be backward, as you mentioned. And I'd want to ask, of course, in the panel, Fanyamambo, War has mentioned something. Might we be back in time? Have we gone back to where we were over, I can say, 15 years ago? Because we gave the police independence, we gave Kenyans right to speak, right to protest, but are we back in time where arrest, abduction, and people being, just gagged for speaking against the government?
Thank you very much. We are not back in time. We have leaders who live in that era. And we have leaders we are telling to their face, you will come from that era or you will go. It is very clear. For us as Kenyans, we are not there. We are not going back to Nyayo House torture chambers. We are not going to allow ourselves to be taken there. If somebody came into 2024 with the ideas of 1992, Youth for Kanu 92, they will leave the ideas of 1992 back there. This is a different country. The people who are living here today, and the problem with people is they don't look at themselves. You come up with a horrible finance bill. And then you start saying the problem is the people who are demonstrating. What is wrong with you? The problem, you need to see where the problem is emanating from. You have brought the problem to Kenyans. By the way, before you came, Kenyans were not going to the streets like that. And they needed someone to tell them to go to the streets. You have come, always in the air, with a horrible finance bill. Then you are wondering why our young people are on the streets. And you are telling them to stop going on the streets. I think we need to put a mirror in the room so that whoever comes and asks what the problem is, you tell them, please look at the mirror. And then they see where the problem is. Then you tell them, now deal with the problem. Because we cannot be 50 million Kenyans who are wrong. My member of parliament went on national TV and said that these things are edited. What he faced, he gave an apology today. I saw some people flushing it down the toilet. And it gets even better that he goes to address people and people tell him you cannot address us because you voted yes. So what I'm telling you is we have people who are in leadership who harbor the ideas of 1992 and 1997. But it is them who harbor those ideas. The people upon whom they are trying to bring those ideas will have none of it. And once that is clear to them, then they will either adjust, and by then it's too late for them, or we will ship them out. So for us, we are not backing down. And by the way, let me tell you something. You know, when we started this fight on the finance bill, I remember people labeled me a busy who is always on media, na tukitwangu tuna trend, na so on and so forth. If that finance bill goes through today, all land in this country is going to belong to government. And you shall be paying a lease for it. So when you tell me where my grandfather is buried, watu wamekuja juzi. You know, they went to Nabibi and they imprisoned a 90-year-old man and took land where he has buried his father. And they are telling him, the MP for that area is telling him, this land belongs to the president. That's the MP who said, those are not my words. And it was on camera. You are coming to tell a 90-year-old man that where he buried his own father belongs to somebody who was born the other day. And that is why this finance bill is horrible. That every person in this country now will not own land. We shall be at the mercy of the government. And they even take away the powers of the commission. You know, the National Land Commission is a commission because it's an independent body. And the way it's been created in a way that to make sure that it's very hard for your land to be taken arbitrarily. So what do? They replace National Land Commission with the minister in charge of land, the CS. And who is the CS? An appointee of the president. And he does. So basically, the president will control all the land. So we need to be extra vigilant. We need to fight. We need to say no to finance bill and to remind them that if they live in 1997, we are in 2024. They belong to that era alone. And the seats they occupy belong to us, not them. And we can replace them and Kenya will go on.
It's important to note that time travel has not been invented yet, but Gen Z have already arrived in the future. Remember, the hashtag is welcome to the future. This is the social newsroom. I have Wakili with me, Polycarp. And of course, we're just talking about the rule of law right here. And the rule of law is a basic requirement for economics to do business. What grade would you give Kenya at the moment? Like, if we were to look on a scale of 1 to 100, or let's just do 1 to 10, Polycarp. Where are you? Yes, sorry. Where would you scale the rule of law and, of course, its application to economics?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give the rule of law a 5. In application to economics, I'd say the government and our constitution has been very strong when it comes to protection of the right to property. That's Article 40, and we've seen this when we even saw the current president being told by the High Court that he grabbed land, and he's supposed to return it to the real owner of the land. So the courts have been very strong when it comes to fighting for the right of property and for people to run businesses in Kenya. The courts have also been very strong when it comes to telling Kere, we are not going to allow you to collect tax in a way that is going to hurt businesses or in a way that's going to make businesses not to run. After all, why, if we have no businesses, then there's not going to be any tax to collect. So the 5 is also because the courts are not the only bastions when it comes to fighting for the rule of law. So when you look at the police being used to go into businesses, and you know we've seen clips of the police stealing from businesses, and they get away with it. We've seen protesters being killed in the streets fighting against a finance bill. It's not that we're saying anything radical. We're just saying we do not want a finance bill. This is economics. This is our lives. These are our businesses. So the rule of law, when it comes to enabling businesses in Kenya, is at an average stat. We need to push it to a beyond average stat, because in this age and time, we cannot, as a country which boasts of being the golden child of the East African and Sub-Saharan region of having an average rate of the rule of law protecting businesses in Kenya. Yeah.
And of course, I'd want to ask our representative from the National Commerce Chambers. I really want to see your perspective on what you think the conduct of the police is. How do you see the conduct of the police affecting economics and business in the country?
Yeah, definitely. The conduct of the misconduct of the police isn't something that has just started with this protest. I think it has been there with many other protests that have been there before. And there's always, protests are peaceful, but then, the conflict comes in. It's not good for our democracy. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for business. And it's not just the police. My brother mentioned about the judicial system. Myself, I have concerns about the judicial process per se, where if you are to take a case to court, whether you have a dispute with another business or even with regulators, government, the court process tends to take a very long time. And by that time, most of commerce has stopped, most of your activities are stalled. So, and more often than not, there's a lot of capital at stake. Your capital is eroded. If you had sought capital from financial institutions, you're still required to service your loan obligations, even as that is happening. But the bigger picture for our legal system, something that I have seen so many times is, at an individual level, even if you are to ask yourself here, how comfortable are you buying land in Nairobi? How comfortable on a scale of 1 to 10? You see, it's 5 and going down, right? And the reason, and that is also very, very visible in the private sector, particularly with investors who come from outside the country. I have interacted with a good number of them, and they prefer to lease the land because they've heard about these issues of, having double, even triple title deeds for the same property, and it's hundreds of millions of shillings. I mean, land in Nairobi is more expensive than in Johannesburg, which is a bit insane. So no one wants to put boots on the ground. They prefer, okay, I'm going to take a 10-year lease, or maybe 15-year lease, but I just don't want to buy because of that environment. Now, that is obviously working to our disadvantage because we would want these businesses to come in, buy land, put their roots here, have more permanent establishments and grow on and on. But that is not enabled by that current system that we have.
We're still discussing the rule of law, and we have to highlight one of the things. There is a lot of fear that is being used by the police to enact some of these businesses. We have seen people lose their homes, still using the police to evacuate from certain people. But we need to understand the fact that all these independent institutions, either it is the legislature, the judiciary, or the executive, are meant to work together. But then it begs the question, what happens when a magistrate, like sadly the late Monica Kivuti, who was shot by a police officer, is killed? Is the independence of this institution going to work? And of course, I want to ask Lorna, because I do understand you have a passion, of course, to conduct business in this country. But when you see some of these institutions working either independently and not as well as they should, because you see, all the systems need to work together. What message does it send to you as a business person?
I'm lucky that in the 2-3 years I've been in business, I have not been taken to court or taken anyone to court. I don't know how that even sounds or feels, because the amount of money probably the person you're in court with might pour would depend how a judging or a ruling might be, might go. And for me, it's a fear. It's actually a fear to run this business without stepping on toes. A sad bit is anyone can wake up and, create charges and things on your business and take you to court. And it will take you years as you're fighting. I can say as early as last year, a different company came up with a product similar to ours. Well, not in terms of quality, but in terms of the name. And they're out in the market and they're selling. They have the same name as us, Binti, but just has an extra "oo" to change the variation of the name. In itself, I know that's wrong. That should definitely be in court. But do I have the muscle right now to take such a company to court? I don't think so. Are they riding on a name that we've probably tried to take, to build with time? Yes. Do I know what that looks like, or is there a body or a thing that governs such to be able to go to, this is my cry, can you help me? Maybe he could help us, but it feels like you're on your own with your business and God help you, hadi ufike mahali unataka kufika. That's how it feels.
And to bounce back, of course, to Kinuthia Fanyamambo, what are some of the specific areas that you think we can have a much more responsive judicial system? Because you have had our concerns. You have had the concerns from we've had concerns from everyone. Where do you think that we can have a more response from the judicial system?
I think first and foremost, it will begin with us as citizens. As a lawyer, I refused to go into litigation. People tell me, let's go to court. I run a mediation-only firm, and I help people resolve their disputes out of court. And I can tell you more than half of the disputes we have in court should not be in court. More than 1.7 million cases are stuck in the courts, and sometimes I pity the judges because sometimes, and you look at the course list, and the judge is going to have like 30 mentions, maybe 4 hearings or 5 hearings. Even the quality, by the time and you look at the files, sometimes they usually put, then you can't see the magistrate, then they have to move and create some little space so that you can see his head. So in terms of the judiciary being responsive, it is responding to us. You stole my chicken. I'm not saying stealing is a good thing. And I took you to court and I said you must see a judge. And probably at some point you got to a point and you felt like I made a mistake. I want us to have a conversation, and you don't want to have a conversation. So let me first throw it as Kenyans. Not every dispute should go to court. Let's find alternative. In fact, it's called appropriate dispute resolution, where you come to, like now, a firm like 9, we sit, we come up with what is now a mediation settlement agreement, we file it in court, it works. For those matters that must go to court, because now atrocities like human rights abuses, when a policeman shoots you like they shot during the demonstration, when somebody does what is happening to her business and does not want to have a conversation, then let's have those ones that must be given the decision of a magistrate or a judge being the matters that go to court. But some of these issues is a brother taking a brother to court because of a boundary that they both know about and they grew up in that farm. And then they want the judge to make that decision. So this is what is overburdening our courts. And I pity them. When you look at Makadara law courts, where we lost Judge Kivuti, may she rest in peace, it was happening in a tent. 60 years after independence, we are not able to build courtrooms. And now she's outside there in a tent, and somebody is renovating State House at $1 billion and buying furniture for $1 billion, and it's not enough building a dais for 700 million. These are the things that annoy Kenyans, because there's a magistrate out there doing a lot of good work, but in a tent. So as we seek to say that the judiciary is not doing this or that, let us try to understand what our judges are going through. You have a course list of 30 cases today, and another one tomorrow, and another one tomorrow. Even look at them, you pity them, and it would take them 10 years to finish the court's cases without other new ones coming in. So as we try to talk about our justice system, let us also come back to ourselves and say, what are these things we take to court that should not have been in court in the first place? And some of them are succession. Some of them are division of matrimonial property. You know your wife bought this house, and you married her and she owned the house. And you are going to court and looking at the judge and saying, I want this house. Shame on such people. So some of those cases are the ones that are clogging our judicial system. And sometimes judges want to accord more to the system that need a judge, but there's a horrible human being here who wants to take a house from the wife, and that's just one example. And the examples are so many others. So we have to start fixing our people, how we raise our children and how we talk to them. I'm a strong advocate for that. People saying mumalize pombe, and I tell them, no, reduce the number of drunkards by 1, and that is your son or your daughter. Talk to them and take them away from this. So our judicial system, in as much as they are doing, of course they have their mishaps, but we Kenyans have contributed significantly to them being who they are.
And of course, as they contribute to, of course, how heavily the judicial system is handling cases, it is important to note that there are other alternative ways to handle cases. And I'd want to ask Kamande what he thinks about community-based and especially turning to alternative ways of conflict resolution, especially in the community levels. Do they work? Are they successful? And should we turn to them?
Yeah, sure. I think the Constitution is very clear. It provides for alternative dispute resolutions. And I'm impressed by Fanyamambo here, who is advocating for ways like mediation, because it's really going to help us. Because even those people who are in remand, for instance, they are costing government money. We are paying money for prisoners, and it's not cheap. It's a lot of money. So I think we should adopt that. And I'm seeing a lot of ongoing conversations with regard to access to justice. I think legal aid clinics are happening across wide, and there are partners who are leading this. But I think as in the broader sense also is to call on leaders. And I think our Constitution had 4 key promises that have really been ignored and mutilated. One of them was accountable governance. We had something on public participation, equality, and service delivery. And when you speak about accountable governance, and I want to look at it beyond being even a community service or development practitioner, as a governance champion, we are seeing even the national government frustrating efforts of devolution. Yeah, affordable housing, which has been pushed beyond our throats. Do you know actually that housing is a county government function constitutionally? And that when you're seeing government pushing for this and trying to chest stamp about such issues, it's a breach to the rule of law, which is a national principle of governance under Article 10. So we need to start with accountable governance, and I think we can take advantage of the moment that we have now to keep demanding for more. Beyond the finance bill, we have so many. And interestingly, you asked one question earlier. Are we going back to the 1950s? I think we are, because look at, there's a bill in Parliament that was tabled in April. It's called the Demonstration and People Assembly Bill. And it wants to bring us back. An assessment done last year by IMLU and KHRC revealed that the Public Order Act about demonstration that governs issues to do demonstration is one that was developed and has never been amended since the colonial days. Actually, the tear gas that you see and we enjoy, and it's good because it's the fragrance of change. I saw that poster and I really like that. It has very, very significant health effects to our health. The pink water has it's a health hazard, and it's not something that we really need to celebrate, because those are outdated ways of handling, of course, breaches in terms of the rule of law and what have you. So one, I think, is to embrace the alternative disputes, and there's a broader sense about it. There are limitations, and our legal minds in the room might want to expound on that. Of course, for example, issues to do with gender-based violence and what have you. The other thing, of course, is to embrace local governance processes. I speak directly towards devolved services. Our Constitution had a big dream. We are seeing even in the finance bill, even in the proposed budget, the amount of money that is going to counties is peanuts. It's almost equal to the amount of money that is going to State House for renovations. Really, it's a breach of our Constitution. It's wayward, and we need to see our government being more responsive and standing up to what is envisioned in our Constitution.
Thank you for that. Still on alternative ways of conflict resolution. Of course, one of the biggest way is the judicial system. I'd want to know from Michael Gore, because he very well understands public policy. What is the application? What would be very relevant when applying public policy in, of course, alternative ways to deal with conflict resolution? Oh,
can you come off again?
Oh, okay. We're still following up on other ways to reduce the burden of the judicial system. And one of the ways is different ways of conflict resolution. And I'd want to know how is that applicable to public policy?
So the interesting thing about our constitution is, like, as Panyamambo has said, it's very expansive. Sometimes you could say unnecessarily, but if you go through the existing laws and systems and policies that we already have, they cater to each and everything, so almost every scenario that we might want to cater to. So it's not a matter of coming up with a new instrument, because we can come up with as many laws as possible. But if we don't follow them, then it becomes useless. It's an exercise in futility. So it's a matter of us simply obeying whatever exists. There's no need for us to, go sit down and start, enacting a new law, re-engineer it and twist words so that, like, it can accommodate someone who, speaks in a particular way or acts in a particular manner. It's simply a matter of observing what already exists. And for me, one of the principles that I feel we should emphasize as a people in our governance and also in our individual lives is simply speaking the truth, or at least not lying. Because like the moment you start lying, even like on that aspect of land, you already know the boundary is here. And then you want to push it here. It's a lie, but and then now the more lie you generate, you will be forced to come up with another lie to cover the previous lie. And then another lie to cover that lie, which covers another lie. And now you are stuck in this cycle of lying. And it erodes everything, all the laws and policies. You might have a million policies, a million laws, but if you're not governed by truth, if you're not willing to abide by what, the standards that you have set out for yourself and that is acceptable by everyone else, it's pointless to come up with all these things. So for me, I think we should always be benchmark on truth. Yeah.
Okay. I can see, that you want to add on something into that.
Allow me to say something now that we have worked in the policy field to make sure that mediation worked. The Civil Procedure Act was changed in this country. Now, for those who are not lawyers, the Civil Procedure Act is basically the law that helps people deal with civil issues, just a civil matter, whatever you understand a civil matter is. And the way it was changed, it now allows a dispute that was not in court before to be mediated, so that if he and I have had a dispute, we can come to you as a mediator, and you can mediate our dispute. And then you can file our agreement in court. And that agreement it has the same weight as a court judgment. So I have been telling people it is now possible to get a court judgment. Like now the people who've been fighting with your company, if, for example, they were willing to come to a table and you come up with a mediation settlement agreement, that mediation settlement agreement can be reduced into the equivalent of a judgment within 30 days, by the way, but like on the court for 5 years. And the mediation settlement agreement is non-appealable. That's the other beauty. You will not hear I've gone to the Court of Appeal on this particular issue. It's a beautiful space that we have fought for. It's a big achievement for people. And even those matters that are in court, you also do the same thing. You come and say, we've had this case for 10 years in court. I'm handling a 23-year-old succession dispute in my farm. And I can tell you that thing had taken 100 lawyers because it's 23 years. 7 judges have touched on that matter. 1 mediator died, I won't die. So it has touched on many lives. And do you know what? 4 sessions. 4 sessions. And actually, some of the people who were claiming died in the process. So what we are trying to say is there's a beautiful space. Go and acquaint yourself with what mediation is. You don't need to be a lawyer. A first degree is enough. And you can study and you can become a court accredited. And you can help judges and magistrates to be able to resolve some of the cases that have been pending in court for many years. So it's a beautiful, and I felt that it's incumbent on me to bring that information so that Kenyans begin to appreciate what is also happening in that field. I'm excited to have listened to him. He's very deep. He understands very well what is happening at his place. And I was thinking, it enthralls me when I see someone who knows what is happening in their space. So that I felt I owe you. is possible for you to resolve a matter out of court, and that becomes a binding judgment just by the fact that the two of you have signed. Can you imagine making your own judgment?
And of course, this has to be one of the biggest questions, and it goes to everyone on this panel, and of course, even the audience as well. Where do we go from here? Because everyone wants to know, what is a fair tax? Lorna, what is a fair tax?
First of all, where do we go from here? Tomorrow in the street.
Hashtag?
Hey, reject finance bill, stop taxing, my period. Yes, yeah. It's as easy as that. That's where we go next. For me, there's nothing worthy of the finance bill right now. So scrap all of that and then have laws that give a bill that would make sense for us as businesses and us as menstrual health champions. Yes.
Danish, should we still ask what is a fair tax? Can we go down with the numbers, or we're good?
I think it's really a fair question. What's a fair tax? But I'm glad that we are really going to answer it tomorrow in the streets. But I'm seeing a lot of our audience online here raising some very interesting questions, you know. But I like this one from Wendy Mwangi. So what is the plan after Maandamano? Because this government does not listen. African Girl says, yes, simply because the government has announced to give us protection, don't trust them. Nikukaa chonjo. We can't trust them at all. I think we'll be listening to the veteran activists to tell us how to stay chonjo, you know. And I like that. So I like also Samuel is saying that no one is in charge. We are saving ourselves. We do not want to be like our parents. Hii ni revolution iko na itasweep mbaya sana. I'm also praying that it goes to the counties because there's a lot of rot in counties. I hope that this revolution then flows and sweeps over. It starts in my county of Kisumu, which is 90% rural, but the city has been made very nice with cabros. Yet beyond the city, people can't afford 3 decent meals a day. As we come to an end, I'd just like to I'll start with Keegan, I think, because you understand this much better, and I want us to be brief because I don't want to keep all of us here really for long. This issue of that we're taking a lot of money and we are using it to pay taxes. So it's like the Kenyan government is now acting as an auctioneer for our colonizers, you know, because they're collecting all this money. 1.8 trillion out of this budget will go into servicing debt. Is it fair? And what will happen to us if we say Atulipi?
I hope we don't get to that point. I hope we don't default. And this is my view as an economist, because I have seen the consequences of default by the sovereign on its debt obligations. It won't just be a burden on government that no one will trust the government, but it will also be a burden even to the private sector. So even the cost of capital, the cost of credit that goes to private sector becomes way expensive because, one, your government is riskier. So the capital markets do price that in. And then if you also look at the foreign direct investment, we get a good amount of that coming to our tech industry. That will go down because now your government is riskier, then you're also riskier in terms of getting back the return. So I wouldn't want for that.
But let me ask you, Keegan. You can put money in some investment and you can lose your money.
Correct.
So can the West lose their money when they invest in Africa? And we just say it's bad investments? Imekunywa maji.
I mean, it has happened.
What would you bet? Sindio, bet Zata is betting. Would you bet to Choma? Sindio?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen Ghana, you've seen Zambia, but I wouldn't. That is not a path that I would want us to choose. But there is an alternative.
Okay.
So the alternative here is that we are supposed to pay a lot of money to debt. So very little money is going to development. And a lot of that money that was borrowed was misappropriated. That's why Kenyans are feeling like they are getting the short end of the stick because they're having to tie their belts, but then if they look at the back end, the money went to some other things. The option here is for government to cut its expenditure. And I believe there are so many pockets for the government to cut its expenditure. Even advisors of the government have acknowledged that the government is excessive in most of the things. We are not living in ordinary times, so the government cannot afford to live in ordinary times. We need to cut the budgets. I believe the cars that the executives drive in government are actually very nice, decent cars. I mean, you don't have to drive the latest of models, so it could start with such kind of items. Finally, going back to the item of the debt that we have. Nobody denies that we have debt obligations. But then in whatever we do trying to raise revenue, there are consequences of these measures that we're bringing. Okay. So in as much as we would have done all this to repay all the debts, but then we end up with a private sector that's really struggling, then what have we really done for our economy? And just to conclude, my last finally is, for the longest time, the parliament has not been incentivized to work for the people that they were elected to essentially represent the views. Because what the members of parliament they'd go to their constituency and see, these people are saying no, then obviously go and vote no. But then that has not been happening because of the executive essentially infringing into that. And money has been exchanged sometimes in not so conducive places. But then I see that with time we're getting there. So as we ramp up this civic engagement, our members of parliament are being put into check. So they will start working, they will start getting incentivized to actually do what the people want and not the executive, because they would know firsthand when it gets to 2027, do not even waste time to print posters because you are going home. So let us increase the civic engagement to that point where we get our members of parliament acting for our best interest.
I like that you've actually answered all the questions I had, and so I think I'll be taking final comment, because there's even a fundamental problem would be, look at three of these institutions. We have the Youth Enterprise Development Fund, we have Uwezo Fund, we have, which other fund? Young People. They each Women Enterprise Fund, and each of them have a strand of their own recurrent expenditure. So you have CEO, they do the same thing. So instead of just bring this together and saying, all right, let's start here. And our president, I think, would do well to call on his comrades not to really gloat over Kenyans. I think that's something that is important. I know that wanasema, I don't know, this sounds bad, but Waswahili wasema maskini akipata. Yeah, so so now I don't know whether these expensive things are replacing how they feel in the inside, and so maybe they want to show off that now I can afford a good shoe. I walk barefoot, now I can afford an expensive shoe that would build anybody's house here. I need to take your final comments, starting with you, and just give us your parting shot. You, as you give us, Commander, as you give us your final comment, I need you to let us know how we can sustain this to 2027. There must be consequences at the ballot for this thing to get into the hearts of the politicians. If we just protest and it ends like this, watasema, when Gen Z walikuwa wanacheza tu. Okay, there's also a final comment from there and right here. All right, so I think just pass the mic as it goes like that. Just give us your final comment. We'll do it a bit differently. The panel plus the final comment from the audience. All right. Our time is spent, but it's fine. I think just because the audience here would like to have their voices engaged. So we're going to start right there. The gentleman pale nyuma. No, we start in Limona wa kwanza, then we, yeah. But keep it brief. I'd like it if it's just a comment, make a comment. So we don't really give room for questions.
Good evening.
Tell us your name. Yeah.
Yes, good evening. I'm Lucas Gitao, a good governance advocate. I really like the conversation you're having, but there's one thing I would like to stress, that we might be talking today about the finance bill 2024, but the conversation is beyond the finance bill. This was just a trigger to the conversation that we've all of us longed to have, and is a question of how are we being governed, and it's a big conversation. And maybe those of us who've been to the streets, at least I have had the privilege to be on the streets, I'll tell you that it is not about the finance bill. So even if they dropped the bill, the conversation will go on because it's beyond that. It is about how we are spending. It is about, the priorities of the government. It's about our values. And I like the conversation that we were having here earlier on. Is it a question of maybe education? Could it be that we have dimwits in offices that ideally should be having, people who have the right experience, people who have the right education? And I'll say this, and allow me to use this analogy kindly. When we get children, at least I'll be having one next month. Thank you. When we get kids, and when kids get to the age of going to school, do we send them to school because, they've become a nuisance at home? Or rather, do we send them to school because it is the right thing that they should get? That education is a good thing for them and for them to become responsible. So why I'm saying this is because we've also failed. We are the people who keep on talking about issues after elections. We have a problem with how finance bill, for instance, is crafted, but we don't have any problem during elections. We gain consciousness after elections. I've challenged many individuals before previously that if you want to see a nation progressing, we all of us need to have a serious conversation at the ballot level.
Okay.
Let's vote individuals, not parties.
All right.
Let's vote values and not necessarily kuchotewa. That is the right thing. Otherwise, history yote tunafanya, wacha nisikudanganye mabro masizo nyoko hapa. Wacheni tuzidanganyane. Tukifanya hii ufala ya kusema ni aje, ni kuchotewa, ni nani anakaa aje, ni nani tunamuona kwa screen sana, labda nifanya mambo, hafu the next thing tuna fail at the expense of individuals. Sasa, thank you so much.
All right, just pass. I'd like to pass the mic here, Kwanza.
Good evening. My name is Meru Anjiru from Activista, which is a youth-led movement, and I'm also a youth and governance associate. Thank you for the very enlightening and a very good panel, yenye imekuwa tu all round. Mini Gen Z, and one, I want to call out for the media. The media has made this fight inakaa ni kama Gen Z. So we are being put at a point kuonekana ni fight yetu, na yet it's for everyone. This is not a Gen Z fight, it's for everyone. And that's why it's making it it's becoming difficult for our parents to join us because wanasema hii ni vita yenyu. 2, where are we going next after here? Kuchukua kura kama hauna kura. 3, kuongelesha wazazi wetu. Wazazi wetu, they're the biggest letdown saizi. Saizi in our family group tuko na vita. We are calling them out by names. Hatuogopi but respectfully telling them. So this is giving me and some of my cousins and aunts who are in my side more tasks come 2027. Hawaendi kutuambia tunachagua in tribal nini. Tunawaambia the leaders we want them to go for. Si wameishi kutuambia. Sasa it's our time for us to educate our parents. Another thing, it's for us. Elections in Kenya are very expensive. Let's agree from there. And that's why some of these leaders wako na kiburi. Because mtu anasema ni pesa yangu ilinichagua, si ndio? Come 2027, hatutaki pesa yao. Sisi tunataka kupeleka very good leaders. Another thing, we want young leaders who are capable to go for this position. So ukiona a young person and you have been following their journey, me, I'm running for 2027. I don't know where I'm running, but I'm running somewhere. Mkiona posta yangu, munichangie. Now you tell other people I'm vying and other people to jitokeleze so that we can be the leaders. We are the leaders of today. We are not the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you. Oh, something else. They are not sanitary towels. They are menstrual products. Let's unlearn that.
Yeah, brief. Just your name.
Okay, I'll be very brief. Okay. I'll be very brief. My name is Virginia Njuguna. I am a Christian content creator and a business owner. Now, my business is 4 months old. Listening to her now, I'm already discouraged because of now what she's been going through. Now, my question is, I've listened to your view of how we would love educated people in the leadership. And at the same time, I've listened to your part of, there's an educated person up there, but anafanya, hakuna kitu anafanya. So what are we going to do? Because my concern is 2027. How are we going to know this is the leader? Because hata hawa wenye wako sahi, they were good people. They were good people, hadi wakituomba kura. They were good people just like us right now. But akifika huko anageuka. How are we going to know this is the lead? No. Now, but there are those we thought they were good people and we put them there. Yes, thought.
No, wacheni.
But
It's a time.
it's
It's a
you
time,
who know
guys.
that was a good person.
All
Other
right.
people didn't know. Because you interacted with them on a one level, maybe. So how are we going to change the person we're going to put in 2027?
All right. So just. All right.
Because there's no one else. You started that business with a plan, with a passion, and that is what is going to lead you throughout that fear.
I'd like to recommend that because of time, just make a comment so that we can maliza. Yeah.
Okay, hello. My name is Lorraine Koske. I am a lawyer and a Gen Z who has been born after 2000. So we know, I was born in 2002 actually. I was lucky enough to get my degree early. And so right now, according to the Kenya National Statistics, 80% of the population are youth. The youth are the people who are on the streets right now. And you see, when you continuously see these leaders in power who don't consider us, Kwanza, there is something that aches me. Why is the Ministry of Youth in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Arts? You know, inakaa hata a little bit unserious. Mna associatiwa na sports nyinyi, hamjui maneno ya governance, hamjui maneno ya politics. And you see right now, that's why the youth are pouring into the streets. Personally, I was in the protest last week, and kesho, as much as my employer is this government, but lunch breaks, immediately after work, I am resuming into the streets. Lunch break, tunaingia. Why? These people don't want to listen to us. And yet, we have also entered into the tax bracket. I'm being taxed. So I know, ni wapi na niuma, exactly. And so, we need, as young people, if we are 80%, 20% who are not, sometimes you even see things like Agenda 2063. I'll be 62 then. Now, it's us who are supposed to be helping these things to be formulated, because it's not for us also. It's also for the generation that's coming after us. I was seeing someone, mnatoa linda mama sai because hatujaza na nyinyi mmemaliza kuzaa. You see, those are things that are actually on the table. It's not only, yes, the finance bill is here, but there is more to that. And as it was said, there's something about intentional leadership that needs to be now drilled into the heads of Kenyans. And now that needs to be even passed on in the civic education, because we cannot be having leaders who are not listening to us, are not going to do what we as the people we want, and then at the same time are apparently just the 20% that are not part of this 80%. Right. For the youths who have gone into leadership, you're a big letdown most of the time. But at the same time, let's not cower. Let's go into these leadership positions. Let's go into these spaces of actually being the professionals behind the policies. Let's learn, let's educate ourselves so that we can be able to advance for our own interest. Right. And so with that said, reject the finance bill, na tujitokeze kesho.
All right. Kate.
Thank you.
Finally, there's a...
One extra hand.
Yeah, there's shit.
Someone takes the mic.
Okay.
Mine is quite simple. For all of us, tumesema it's not Gen Z, it's all of us. So for citizens, there's nothing kama shape or adjust. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Ni shape out. Like we ship them. Kabisa, let's try new ones. Because hakuna haja tushinde intentional as she says, we thought. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Let's define what we think is good leadership. In this time, usikue tu hivi. Learn. This conversation, as my colleague says, it's not about the finance bill. It's about accountability. It's about transparency that we don't see. I was asking someone, the way we've seen this finance bill, unaona venye tumeiona? Imagine all our counties wangekuwa naeka vitu zao hivyo. Kelele ingekuwa aje. So let's push to see stop. And lastly, rule of law. Kidogo mi sioni juu government hawasikii chochote. Watu do not respect these things we call court orders. So tafadhali, mtusaidie kidogo.
All right, let me have the microphone here back. So I think because of so Bochel na Liapo hivi ati we're not giving them time. So these two gentlemen will represent the I mean, just make it brief, a comment.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jenga Kashero and it's a pleasure to be here. So we are talking about the finance bill and I'm proposing solutions to the government. So first of all, how do we start this? We have a balloon in a debt crisis or whatever we can call it. So in this case, we, at the moment, I think it's just about 400 billion. Let's reduce that to 200 billion. Second, let's cut our leakages in terms of illicit financial flows, not just corruption, not just talking about maybe what the leaders have taken. They are what multinationals are taking from us. Let's cut the leakages in terms of illicit financial flows. Thirdly, I would also want maybe we need to increase our private public partnerships. We have seen how that has been effective in like doing multi-billion projects. The government doesn't have to go in its own pockets, but they can go further to investors. So it's resolved to fight this whole thing about the finance. We need broad economic reforms. We need the government to be accountable, and we need the leaders to be accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. I'll be very brief as you first. The conversation around having... Yeah?
Your name?
Sorry.
Okay.
My name is Maxwell Magawi. I'm the founder and the current executive director of the Students' Caucus. The proposal to have better characters in our leadership spaces is very legitimate. That I agree. But then, if you look at it through historical lenses, you realize that some of the characters we're dealing with right now, if you had to take them a few years back, they were very promising characters. You'll associate them with integrity any day. Somebody like Mohaji Chopevu, when he was working at KTN and was exposing corruption ills and everything, you are like, okay, we can give this guy leadership, okay? But look at Jichopevu right now. So relying on character may not be very reliable. What I'll really wish for is that this country adopts a culture of vigilance and constant activism that is ingrained right from childhood. All right? The other day, I saw some children in my neighborhood, picketing. I'm sure they're just picketing for fun. Something they watched on TV and they were saying, Ruto must go, Ruto must go. So if you have a population that is constantly vigilant and at the slightest touch of misgovernance, you see them thousands on the streets. You'll see even the likes of Oscar Sudi and Kimani Ichung'wah coming down from high, pinnacles of arrogance and humbling down. So that we wouldn't be worried, even if it's the devil who is the president. He knows that we can organize a prayer session and exhaust him, yeah? So let us look at this, not in terms of individual character, but our collective character as a people. That, okay, we trust you at this point, you're a good person, but should you imagine of being a bad person, you're even capable of hanging you publicly, okay? So it's about political resocialization of the Kenyan people. That will be my take.
Makofi kwake. Kate, I'd like you to close for us, Kate. Yeah, all right.
I think the leaders are here. The leaders are definitely here. They're not anywhere else, because all of you are speaking so much from our hearts. And of course, the hashtag is now. The future is now. As we wind up, welcome to the future. As we wind up, the one thing I will say moving forward for me is, more than ever, I have never worn the Kenyan thingy here. I've never worn it, and I plan not to wear it, because for the longest time I felt very betrayed by this nation. I felt like y'all are not angry enough, y'all are not loyal enough, y'all are not true enough to yourselves. This is one of the richest countries in the world, and to be the poorest is such a shame. It's such a shame to be the brightest in the room and still the dullest to the world. But there's one thing I want to say that will guide us. One of the girls asked, and I'll tell you this because that's the one question: how do we know who's bad and who's good, who's bad? And I'll remind you this. I'll remind you one thing: the African person, their identity was stripped away from them. Remember, we're dealing with a new language. I'm not supposed to be speaking in this language. I'm supposed to be speaking in my native. We were given a new religion to speak up. We were given new hair. We were given a new identity. So Africans really do not have the identity that they had. So if there's one thing Kenyans need to do is go back to their identity so much. But even more so, we need to be objective and not subjective. Please say it with me. We need to be objective and not subjective. That is the only way we'll be able to figure out who is right, who is wrong. Because there are people who would jump on this wave to picket with us, to say reject finance bill because they want the likes, they want to be seen. They wear red lipsticks on billboards lying to us that they're fighting for the girls, and the girls are crying when their ears are closed. They have sneered at the face of their own children. Don't ever forget that. There is no parent who sneers at the face of their children, but this one sneered at their children. And I know you've seen the clip going online everywhere. The generation we have is morally upright. We have a moral army. So they have no choice but to get out of our way. Those are my closing remarks. Mark Masai.
Hey, thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to appreciate Danish Odongo for standing in, sitting in. He's my double, as you can see from the bald head. And Ndevu bado ana struggle kiasi. And Kate, hey. You to reject. Go ahead, Kwanza. And Kate Rira for standing in, sitting in for us. But really, it wasn't standing in for Mark Masai, because Welcome to the Future is not a conversation for Mark Masai. Reject Finance Bill 2024 is not a conversation for Mark Masai. It is a conversation for all of us. And I'd like to appreciate also the panelists who've been here. Tulikuwa na AQ. Alikuwa bully. Alikuwa prefo, I think. Yeah, I remember him from Aquinas High School. Veni Vici. Yes. That's where we were in high school together. And I appreciate all of you for sitting in and informing this conversation. And also the contribution. I think we need an addition where tunapata maoni kutoka the people who are seated here, because that's where it's raw, you know. And Budan Miskia, you're expecting a child? I say, hey, all the best, man. All the best. Sababu the government we're in, and you are. No, in the sense. And you're part of what is a push to make it a better country. And my wife was just telling me that she's struggling to explain to our two children, under 5, both of them, mandamano ni nini. And we're making it clear to let them know what it is, and it's not a bad thing, what they see on the streets, much as some scenes are a bit messy. So my point to come here ni kufinish kumalo. Kusema tu yani, whether or not symbolically I'm seated in this chair, the conversation has to continue. Whether or not they take, sometimes I see the panic through what the government is doing clearly is to try and get to the leader. Who is the leader of this movement? They'll try, but they won't quite find it because it's a movement beyond Gen Z. And coming from public relations, I don't see anything wrong with this being, the credit being given to Gen Z. Because to be honest, it's egg and face for our generation and the others. Tunasikia shame on us that imebidi nyinyi ndo mtuonyeshe how to go about this. And for years we've been saying, you guys don't care about your future. You guys don't care about the government and the country. But you guys damn well care. And I'm proud of Gen Z. I think we all need to give a round of applause to all the Gen Zs around the country who've led by example and have made us all catch up. Kuna say they've just joined in the bandwagon. Even the churches, we saw them. It's knee-jerk reaction. Much as some have joined in and said they support, knee-jerk reaction. Wamengoja kusikia hii kelele ndo onekane, we support our children. We've seen even the National Cohesion and Integration Commission speaking today, talking about, we should listen to the youth. Knee-jerk reaction pia. IPOA claiming that they're looking for evidence. Ukiwa na evidence, I'm thinking evidence mob sana iko hapo. You can see it. And that's the thing. You know, you will probably shut down maybe 1 or 2 centers of, media, but media iko kila mahali manze, iko hapa. But there's a reason why I bring this up, because in the last few hours, in fact, this was at 8:50 p.m., the president of the Law Society of Kenya, the 51st, Faith Odhiambo, another round of applause to her and the LSK. They put out a statement on possible internet disruptions during the Reject Finance Bill 2024 demonstrations, the government continues to perpetuate unconstitutional infringements of the rights of Kenyans in its determination to quell public dissent. We are apprehensive of disquieting reports of plans to shut down and or interfere with internet connectivity during tomorrow's protest. Such a move would be an affront to Articles 33, 34, and 35 of the Constitution. We firmly warn the government against taking such ill-advised unconstitutional actions. And there's a statement here by 27 international organizations. You can read it from her X handle, Kabla Ikuwe shut down. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but just to see the international attention that this has drawn as well. Wangapi waliona Anonymous with 5.1 million followers, wakipeana message. It's gone out there. And we've seen even people in different consulates in different parts of the world joining in and saying, hey, we are with you. The point is, this is beyond one. It's not a personality thing. Sitasema nitakuja ni shine, although Emona has some very impressive ways of, standing out and being part of the protest, but not being seen. Moja aliona ule ochi influencer. Yeah. And that youngin who alikuwa naiko kwa Mariamu, lakini alikuwa sema, hey, this is my moment to shine, man. And nyote tulikuwa tunacheka ndio, but it's a message. You're not intimidating these ones by arrest. You're not going to shut them down by catching one person or the other. It's gone beyond, and even to areas that would be seen to be supportive of the current regime. So if the government does not hear this to be a message that wake up, it's beyond the finance bill. This is just a pain point that now has triggered the conversation moving forward. It's going to be hard to stop. And the more you try to stop, whether it's with the internet or what have you, it's going to get harder. And they have discovered this is not the conventional way of protest. It's peaceful. And read the LSK page, X page, Twitter page, and giving you the do's and don'ts during the protests tomorrow. It's unconventional. Kuna wale labda hata watatoka nyumbani, lakini wako hapa, and they're supporting in one way or another. It's beyond even the one person who we deem as the president. It's about the perpetual waste and corruption and misgovernance within the country. It's beyond. So it won't stop with just getting one person or just stopping this hashtag. See about a hashtag. It's beyond us. So I'm just here to say asanteni sana for coming through and for your time. And, welcome to the future. This is a future of protest and how different things, even us, we're trying to ask, hey, ni nani kweli, who started this? It's not about you shining. It's about you contributing, because it is about your future. It is about your country. Many saying, oh, this is not patriotic, disrupting. No, I think this is actually patriotic. This is the definition of patriotic. Katie, tafuta tu. Tafuta. Kubali ni Kenya yako, vile iko, and we try and make it better. And that's what this conversation was about. So I was listening in, and I appreciate you standing in and taking this opportunity, as well as Kate. Conversation continues. Tunawashukuru nyote. A round of applause to those who put this together. Kura yangu uko nayo, utatuambia tu ni wapi to register. But it's very important, beyond this discussion, that you take up the ownership of the future of this country, and in terms of registering as a voter and being part of, the deciding factor for the future. And it's gotten people worried. Let's not lie. And the international community is watching and listening. Asanteni nyote, and welcome to the future. Let's continue. It's beyond Reject Finance Bill 2024, but that's the conversation we've had, and that's the context that has brought us here together, and it is going to continue whether people like it or not.